Greetings, all. Welcome to another episode of The Grumpy Gardener Show. This one is on synchronicity. I've had people in the past ask me to cover this topic. And so I apologize to viewers and out there who had requested and really hadn't received. I've always been hesitant on touching this subject. It has little to do with gardening, I suppose, but it does have a lot to do with life. And the main reason I haven't wanted to touch it is that it generally falls into the realm socially of what we call mysticism and magic, And, I think Frank Zappa, and I agree. Anybody out there ever listen to Frank Zappa's Cosmic Debris? Oh man, there are some really good live recordings on YouTube. Check it out. Frank Zappa, Cosmic Debris. Even if just like rock and roll, it's great rock. But yeah, like Zappa says, who you think you're jiving with that cosmic debris, okay? It's a very cynical, snarky, typical of Frank. But I like it. It does definitely resemble the way I tend to feel about mysticism too. I have personally, I guess you say, a lot of what you may call this sort of experience, but I always seek some sort of a scientific or reasonable explanation for that. I never go off into, ooh, it's cosmic. No, doesn't happen here. It just doesn't happen. Anyway. So the term synchronicity, it was pretty much coined and defined in a scientific psychological way by Carl Jung. Yeah, Carl Jung is spelled with a J, if you want to look him up. He was contemporary with Sigmund Freud, a psychologist in the 20th century. I had a couple of semesters of psychology in school, I guess, and never got much out of it. But the one thing I remember is that Freud kind of gets under my skin, and I've always found Carl Jung sort of fascinating. Well, he pretty much defined this term, and there are books. One of them, written by Jung, was Synchronicity, a causal connecting principle. And what he did with that book was he pretty much stripped off the fantasy, the mysticism, and the magic out of the concept of synchronicity and tried to define it in psychological, scientific terms. I did a pretty good job of it, too. The book, A Causal Connecting Principle, Synchronicity by Jung, is deep, but it's a very fascinating read, especially for anybody that sort of has these experiences. So now let me talk more about what is a synchronicity. Sure, you could divine that right off. Synchronicity, the simultaneous occurrence of events which appear significantly related but have no discernible causal connection. Okay, that's a mouthful. In other words, something happens, and somehow or another it was connected to another event that was completely disconnected, it seemed in reality, yet the two things seem to go together. Okay, that's synchronicity. And, well, let's see. All right. Now, the reason I am speaking on this subject is that recently I have had maybe 5 or 6 people come to me with questions about synchronicity. They're experiencing it, and they're experiencing it mostly through numbers. Oh boy, yeah, calculators, numbers, and yeah, right, yeah, sure. Yeah, it seems to be one of the ways that it will become aware. The human consciousness is scientifically divided into several levels. We are multi-tiered organisms here. We have this ego, that's Bill's ape meat brain, the meat brain Bill, he's the ego guy. Then, behind in that I have a subconscious, and then there is an unconscious too, and so on, and maybe a lot more. But we are layered, and we are not always aware of what is happening from one layer to another. In fact, we generally are unaware. The ego person, the Bill, the ape brain here, a whole lot of what he thinks he thought up actually was fed from the subconscious downward, without me being aware that I already knew the answer to that before I thought of it. That's how it happens. Yeah, because subconscious works so many things out. It's in control so much. Yeah, you think you're in control here? Look at the guy behind the curtain. Yeah, it really is very true when you pay close attention. Well, because of this multi-layered nature, okay, things travel from one layer to another in rather unusual ways sometimes. It travels by intuition. It travels through dreams. It travels through, synchronicities, yes. And as the different layers in our consciousness will more or less speak with one another, I find, for me, that the connection is actually made through numbers, through mathematics. Mathematics is a universal language. It can describe anything, and it can even describe a non-local nature of a human organism if you're paying close attention to that. The questions most of the people who talked to me were posing were that they would, suddenly wake up at 1:11 in the morning, for instance, 111, and then later, they pop up at 222. Later, 333, and so on. Well, with no particular reason why. Why is this happening to me? Why? And you wake up, you're staring at the clock, and there it is. You have a number sequence. Well, when it first started to occur to me decades ago, this whole thing with our unconscious speaking with the conscious mind through numbers or through math is old history in my life. It's something that happened many, many years ago. It continues, but it doesn't mystify me in the slightest anymore. It used to be extraordinary. What would happen was, I'm sleeping away. All of a sudden, my eyes would pop open, staring at the clock up on the counter. Digital clock, 111. Okay, nothing today. Fall asleep. All of a sudden, hour 11 minutes later, bang, 222. And it would continue, and it was almost always 1 hour and 11 minutes between the time that I'd last seen these numbers and the next time. So they're always just, repeating digits. Well, that went on for a while, and it was waking me up, and it was both weird and aggravating. Well, eventually what happened is it switched when it started going to sequential numbers on the clock. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. All right. And so, one night I got identical numbers, and next night I got sequential numbers. And after a while, I started getting the impression that there was some part of me that was messing with me. It was like it was playing a joke on me. It was prodding at me and going, what do you think of this? I'll wake you up now at, 222, 333, wake up. It was like that. It was a bit aggravating because I was actually like I was poking fun at myself. Well, that continued. It still occurs today, all right? But, very significant, I guess, recently, I woke up at 1:11 in the evening, rolled over, and there's a clock, it's 1:11, okay. At this point in life, I know already, if that happens, pay attention. That means something is very important, right? now. Well, it turned out that I had risen from a dream. I had a dream about my son, and it was about good fortune coming for my son, and that things were going to work out quite well for him. I don't know. Okay, it was that type of a dream, and so, and I woke up and I saw 1:11 of the clock. So by now, I don't even question that. I go, okay, going back to sleep, forgot about it, woke up next morning. I get the time to call my son. Say, hey, Alex, good stuff's coming. Yeah, yeah. I said, I had a dream, and you have some excellent future heading your way. It's going to be good. Pay attention, and I don't know, just be aware. That's all I told him. I didn't, at the time, have anything very specific other than the general sense that his life was going to make a really good turn. Well, yeah, it turned out, I think he was working for like a Walgreens drugstore or something, a pharmacist assistant. Well, got a job with the University of Wisconsin in their medical facilities, which is a pretty good job. And then, after a little while, was promoted to be the supervisor of the techs that do most of the ordering for prescriptions, is what he's doing. Well, this is good news for him. Yeah. It's also something he likes. He really enjoys being able to try to help people. It's a thing he likes. He's just not quite like his dad. So I told Alex, that he had good stuff coming, and it turned out it was true. Now, in the past, my sons, anytime I divulge anything like this, they're always, Dad, he's a nut job. My father is crazy. He thinks he's a psychic. But, it's gotten to the point with Alex that the other day he came to me and says, Dad, do you see anything dark out there, or is it all good, life? He's asking me to read his fortune. Well, I didn't see anything dark. It does turn, though, and he's going to have an operation. And I said, he's got a physical ailment. They're going to have, and that could be serious, but I'm just going to assume it was all part of the good smiley news I picked up, that it's going to come out just fine. I don't see anything. Anyway, so that was the last time that there was a synchronistic dream connected to numbers. Now, this number thing isn't the only method of communication from one level of our consciousness to another. There are other ways. There's always more ways than I could even count. But what I'm hearing from other people is they're encountering these number sequences. Well, what the number sequences are doing for you is they are telling you, pay attention, wake up. Hey, I'm here. You have a greater consciousness than just the meat brain, and it's talking to you. Now, I can tell you that the first time this ever happened to me with the numbers, it was a dream state with literally numbers calculating and pouring out of my brain, that I woke up running math, determining that most of the things we use to measure time had originally been based on 6, but somehow the week ended up with 7 days. It doesn't fit mathematically into any other part of our time metering. And as I was waking up, I saw that at a time there had been ancient calendars, older than the Roman, that were based in 6 days, and 6 had been the basis of all of this. But I don't know the exact history here, but I do suspect it was the Romans. They left us the Roman calendar, and they also left us the Vatican, the Christian Bible. Okay, they're the ones that distilled that package and pushed it out and said, this is religion. Originally, the first guys. And in the process, it states in there that it took 6 days to create the world, and on the 7th day, God rested. He had a Mai Tai, and he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and he got under the pump, and all. And so it doesn't work out if a week only has 6 days, because God rested on the seventh, which becomes the Sabbath. And so I do believe it has a social, religious connection that doesn't really have anything to do with actual math and the rotation of the planet or the planet around the sun. I don't believe there's any mathematical connection there at all. It's just a distinction that they've broken it up, and it doesn't work very well either. That was what my brain was seeing. It doesn't fit. That's probably why we have leap years. Okay. Anyway, this was the original first introduction to crazy numbers in Bill's head from outer space. I woke up in the midst of this, and I am not the kind of a mathematical head that would sit down and try to break out our timetables and figure out what they were based on. Well, it happened, and it happened due to a higher sense of consciousness in myself moving downward through my meat brain while I was dreaming. But sometimes I worry, because I did a show here on Natural Stupidity about numbers, math, calculators, AI, etc., pencil math. Well, it was yesterday. I had a gentleman here who had contacted me, and I knew he was coming, and they wanted some plant material. So after we got done with that, we started talking story, and, well, Synchronicity or AI came up. AI came up. That's what it was. And, of course, I expressed my disdain. Well, he did, too. He said, man, I don't know what you do about this situation, but it ain't pretty. And he says, a lot of my friends, blah, blah, they just kind of accept the fact that, they have no privacy. The phone's listening all the time. Anything they say, do. It's, the AI's knowing it. But, well, of course, he's not so sure he likes that idea. And then we started talking about synchronicity, about numbers and da-da-da-da-da, and I come to find out that this gentleman was the last pencil math student. Yep. His age group places him in the last class that ever used a chalkboard or a pencil and a piece of paper to do mathematics. And he tells me he's seeing numbers. Yeah, he expressed these synchronicities of waking up at night and seeing number sequences, and he said he had not yet experienced the sequential patterns. I said, you wait. I said, it's your subconscious, unconscious, whatever, other consciousness waking you up and saying, hey, pay attention, wake up, it's important, do this. Well, I'm hearing so many people do this. I have about 5 or 6 people have come to me and tell me that they're seeing numbers. Well, maybe if you don't install that pocket calculator in your brain through school, maybe you don't even have the numbers to work with, because in my head this thing spins on its own. It's almost autonomous now. I don't have a Texas Instruments calculator in my brain. I got a Hello Kitty calculator. My math skills are. But it's there, and it operates without me thinking about it. That's the point. And my subconscious appears to be using it as a way of communicating to me. And it's happening to a lot of different people that I have spoken with. It's several. And it's the same phenomenon. And it's weird that I should have 5 or 6 people come to me and tell me that they're seeing numbers out of the blue. Okay. Well, thoughts on that, because I said I don't go for cosmic debris. The mystic mumbo jumbo, you can shove it. I don't do religion either. And so when I experience things like this that are really, we call them supernatural or whatever you want to call them, they're very unusual. I have to look for explanations that seem to me to make sense in the real world, scientifically. And I don't have to make a big jump to make some kind of crazy belief, all right? But I explain it with hypothesis. Anything that I think I know, I don't know. I only think I know it. Okay. Well, it's not long ago, during the 20th century, that physicists began observing this peculiar phenomenon where atomic particles seem to be appearing and disappearing out of our reality. Yeah, electrons jump in and out and stuff. Well, Uh, that's most peculiar, and no one knows really where were they going. What did they do while they were gone? We don't know. But it happens. They go in and out all the time. Well, then they invent a quantum computer. Now, it's barely invented as far as I know. They're still having problems stabilizing these things, you know, and trying to run things at such cold temperatures that they don't have problems with them or another issue. But they have already understood that when these things calculate, they are not calculating just in this reality. The fact that these atomic particles jump in and out, the electrons move in and out of our reality, this thing is doing calculations in multiple realities. Now, that's not Bill's imagination. You don't like that idea. You just go check it out. That's what they're finding out. Well, okay, that's sort of mystifying them. On the other hand, not too much, because most quantum math will typically include the idea that there must be at least 11 different dimensions of reality here for the math to work, period. Math don't work unless you stick in at least 11. It could be more. Yeah, it may be a multiple worlds universe. In fact, it most probably is. Well, now, the quantum computers are doing this, and they've noted it. Well, everything here is quantum. There is nothing here in our reality that isn't quantum. Everything, its energy is moving in and out of other realities all the time. That includes me. Okay, my cells, my synapses, everything that I am made out of at the subatomic level, it follows quantum principles and not Newtonian physical principles. In other words, I am a quantum computer. I think, therefore I am. And when I think, thinking is not completely local, in my opinion. I don't believe that the memory I possess, for instance, that memory is totally local. I see my brain as being more of a switchboard that helps connect these things. But I do believe retrieval actually is on this quantum thing, that the storage is, well, let's just say that in a quantum universe, time and space really don't matter much. Yeah, you could cut them in any direction in the way you want to. And that was where I first began to understand how it was that I could see events that hadn't actually occurred yet. It wasn't mystical. It was part of our universe. Well, so I would call the state that synchronicity operates in mass consciousness. And the consciousness, I don't believe, is entirely human. I do believe that it probably includes almost everything that's at least within this reality, and maybe more. But I don't figure that I am intelligent or we're intelligent as creatures just because we're special. We are different, but I think we're intelligent because everything's intelligence. Intelligence is native within the fabric of this reality we live in. We just express it. Plants express intelligence and stuff. You look at the way things work out here. Some people call that God. It was God. You know, well, okay. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But I don't define it. Because as soon as I put labels on it and say, yeah, this is it, oh, brain stopped. Skittle. Yeah, I know what that is. Okay, let's move on. Well, except that wasn't what it was. That's usually what happens with mystical, religious, spiritual type explanations. They don't usually hold water when you start to boil them down. Well, so as an example of where I'm going here now with this, is that I would like to hear from people that may be experiencing synchronicities. I would. But the most recent example of where I'm going, and this really has nothing to do with numbers either, it's so when a person becomes aware of the fact that the universe is interactive. Alan Watts, the philosopher, he has quite a bit on YouTube. There's a video, more than one, probably by Watts on YouTube, where he is discussing the idea of how our universe is interactive. Okay, it's a mass consciousness that if the image he creates is that see everything as being like a spider's web, and on the web there are spiders in the web. See, well, if you get one spider down here in the corner who starts vibrating the web, let's say if it's a human, it's by a thought, an action or something, but the spider shakes the web then vibrates throughout the entire web. Well, it shakes the other spiders that are in the web. And so those spiders oftentimes will respond by shaking back. Okay, this is how some of these incredible things occur that just don't seem to make any sense. And the reason why they happen is that the universe that we live in is interactive. You can't think or do anything here without affecting everything else that's around you. You have to pay attention to notice that, but after a while, if you become familiar with the idea of an interactive universe and synchronicity, the world begins to show itself by its true form. Recently, well, I sit often and I watch clouds. I'm retired. Yeah, I live in Hawaii. We're next to the ocean here. And real nice clouds. They come in. I'll sit in the lanai and relax in the afternoons, you know, in the evenings. And sometimes I sit with Ellen and we watch clouds. And frequently, well, I'll look up and go, oh, look at that. Oh, there's a pig. And she'll look up, oh, yeah, sure, I see that, you know. And, well, I remember that happened one day, and then the next day she jumped up during dinner and said, Bill, there's pigs in the garden. And when I went out, I found 6 of them had broken through the fence. But the day before, we had been seeing pigs, multiple pigs, both of us in the clouds. All right, so, yeah, coincidence, right? So this moves on, and after a while I begin to understand that most of the time when something forms in the clouds out there and I'm looking at it and I see it, it's pretty much the same thing as reading tea leaves, as reading palms, okay. The mass consciousness speaks through any sort of a media. And I often see it in the clouds. That isn't the way I used to. Okay, it was always in dreams, intuition, you know, that sort of thing. But lately I see it a lot in the clouds. And the other morning I was sitting there and looking at the clouds, and I had 3 ancient Hawaiian with the headgear and everything show up in the clouds. And they were beautiful. I mean, truly well formed. I've never seen such formation in my life. Okay, I said, well, that is special. I don't usually see Hawaiians in the cloud. And in the midst of them was a young woman's face and flowing long hair, pretty, and did not appear Hawaiian. The others were wearing the helmets and all. Okay, I said, that's pretty cool. Didn't mean anything much to me other than it was pretty interesting. Well, apparently at that moment, one of Ellen's friends, who is pure Hawaiian, was texting her, trying to get her to pay attention because she was here in Pahoa with her family at a family reunion, and she knew Ellen from California, but she was going to pop in and see us. And she kept texting, and Ellen wasn't responding to anything on these texts. And so they showed up, boom, right like that. In the middle of my lunch, all of a sudden, wham, I got 3 native Hawaiians that walk in on me while I'm eating lunch, and in the midst of them is a young girl who was the daughter of the youngest, who is mixed race, okay, and has long hair and is very pretty, all right. And I'm going, yeah, you know, it was like earlier today I saw 3 ancient Hawaiians in the clouds, and they all jumped up and went, hey, 1, 2, 3, here we are. Yeah, I guess so, huh? And then there was that daughter. Okay, So now here's a situation where what I'm seeing there, I'm visualizing a reality that's actually occurring at the moment. All right? They were trying to text her. They were coming. And I knew it, except I couldn't figure out those symbols. Oftentimes, when synchronicity occurs this way in dreams or however it works, it is often highly symbolic. Okay? And these were not ancient Hawaiians, but they were related to the ancient Hawaiians, and they felt this. All right. Well, this happens to me day in and day out. All right, it's day in and day out, and it's not. Sometimes it's a dream. Sometimes I got a thought, and I turn around and I look at the clock in the kitchen, and it has a number on it that is the number of my childhood home address. And every time I see that number show up spontaneously when something is going on, and I'll look, and there it is, I know I'm home. That number means you're home. That's right. You're in the right place. You're doing it right. You're home. That's what it means. It speaks to me. Now, that number is special for me. You don't have that address. All right? But I have a personal number that tells me. Yeah, you're right on. All right, it also sounds like a bunch of mystic mumbo-jumbo, except fact is that I do believe you can actually make sense out of this by the nature of quantum physics. This is a multiverse. It is. And consciousness, I don't believe, is local. I think the brain is just a switchboard. That's all that thing is. It's a connector. But consciousness most likely exists outside of it. Well, now, if you didn't figure that was a whole load of bull, then how about this one? Okay, because I've been numerous, rather famous psychics who have pointed at this time, supposedly in history, as being a time that a split comes in humanity. That's a confusing idea. It's not easy to grasp. Guys like Edgar Cayce, for instance, he's a very well-known 20th century documented psychic. This was his belief, that there would come a time when humanity would begin splitting. Now, I think I know what he meant now, because I'm meeting people through these number sequences who are talking to me about coming in contact with a mass consciousness, that they're beginning to wake up to the fact that we're all in the same spider's web together here. Okay, they're beginning to wake up to a new reality. It's happening. I'm seeing it. It's being claimed that it's happening, but at first I considered it was just bull. I don't know. But now I'm starting to believe it. People are coming to me. And on the other hand, got a whole bunch of people that their entire life literally is glued to a screen, and as AI moves in more and more and more and more, in a way, you could say we reproduced mass consciousness with the internet. Yeah, we already had a means of communicating throughout. But we made another one, and DARPA did. And it's a good thing, but the internet, in my opinion, it's like Einstein and his math, general relativity, the E equals mc squared. Fabulous understanding of the nature of how energy is working here, but what did we do with it? Yeah. We made atomic bombs. That's horrendous. We also, though, then made atomic reactors, so we get 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, Chernobyl, and so on, and infinite pollution. I remember the indoctrination videos when I was a boy in school during the 50s and 60s, how it's always going to be free energy for everybody, abundant, limitless, clean, free. It was such a load. The government videos, or whoever produced those things, they were propaganda. And it was junk. And, we're in a situation today where it turns out it wasn't such a sweet idea. Well, I kind of see the internet the same way. It was a really sweet idea when DARPA came up with it. But what did they do with it? They flood it with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence and the atom bomb are basically about the same thing, but AI is worse. Yeah, AI is worse. Atom bombs strip away your flesh and leave nothing but ash, but the AI has stripped away your brain. That's basically what's happening here. By allowing machines to do most of our thinking for us, and will continue more and more and more, we ourselves stop losing the ability to do these things. That's the way it is. Yeah. You know, you don't exercise it, man, you lose it. Yeah. So I'm seeing this thing because we got a whole bunch of people running around. Screen, social media, yeah, internet. And then, of course, supporting the idea that artificial intelligence, is a good thing. They can draw, now they can write, etc. I've heard multiple people telling me, "Oh, now I can write a story." And again, I'm going to tell you, if you couldn't write the story without a computer aiding you in machine knowledge, then why are you even bothering? Seriously, what's the point? I ain't gonna read it. He had it to me. So there is a split, because if you become aware of the interactive nature of this synchronistic universe, you understand there probably wasn't any need for an internet anyway. They were trying to text Ellen all morning long, and I'm just watching Hawaiians and the clouds. Okay, everything you really ever needed to know is available here to you if you can find it. That's true. Yeah. Well, that's it. But I do think that we are seeing this split. This split is occurring. Where it's going to go, how it's going to work, I don't know. But I know I find myself and a number of other people finding themselves just completely disgusted with the idea of artificial intelligence and what it's doing. It's vermin, as far as I'm concerned. I have a very difficult time getting it out of the walls of my house. It's like having rats. And I don't like it. It's not friendly, and it's not human. Yeah. This will be the first time that I ever got up and started ranting about things that were not human. I mean, I've taken on the Orange Jesus before. He's human, I guess. I've taken on Kennecott Copper, in the state of Wisconsin, and I don't know, all kinds of things. But all of them got a face somewhere. There's a face. That'd be the first time. This thing bothers me. That ain't human. I don't like that at all, because it thinks it's intelligent, and it will begin to think more and more and more and more. And it's actually dragging people away from their true natures. This is where I'm going. There are people waking up to their actual nature in this reality, and there are other people running down the screen time when they'll never see it. I don't think. I don't know. I'm not sure. But there's a change that's occurring in people right now. It's real. And I do believe that the change is a split between those of us who understand a interactive and synchronistic reality that we live in, and understand that every thought, every action matters big time here. And then the rest of them are on social media. Bye, brain. Bye, brain. Yeah, it's sort of a waste of gray matter, frankly. But hey, hang loose all. Aloha.